and paternity testing was happening. I kept it factual and didn't accuse him of anything. He responded within an hour with a message full of anger. He said Laura had told him she was on birth control and accused her of trying to trap someone. He called her crazy and said he wanted nothing to do with any of this. Then he blocked me before I could respond. I showed Laura the message and she went pale. She insisted she had been on birth control, but admitted she'd missed a few pills during stressful weeks. I asked if she'd told James that and she looked away. Of course she hadn't. She'd let him think everything was fine while playing both of us. Laura's sister Lexi called me 2 days later completely out of nowhere. She said Laura had told her everything and she wanted to help mediate. I listened while she explained that Laura had always had abandonment issues from their dad leaving when they were kids. She said Laura made bad choices when she felt insecure and needed people to understand that. I stayed polite and told her I appreciated the context, but family history didn't excuse lying and manipulation. I had to focus on practical next steps rather than excuses. Lexi got quiet and then said she hoped I'd give Laura another chance for the baby's sake. I told her the baby would be fine either way because I'd be a responsible father regardless of my relationship with Laura. Lexi said that was all she could ask for and hung up. I sat there thinking about how Laura's whole family seemed to enable her bad behavior by making excuses. I found a therapist named Audrey Howe online 2 days later. She had good reviews and specialized in relationship problems. Her office was in a small building downtown with a waiting room that smelled like lavender. I filled out intake forms asking about my relationship history and what brought me in. When she called me back, she was maybe 50 with gray hair and kind eyes. She listened while I explained everything about Laura, James, the pregnancy, the paternity uncertainty. She didn't interrupt or look shocked. When I finished, she asked what I wanted from therapy. I told her I needed to figure out how to handle this without losing my mind or becoming a bad person. She smiled and said those two things weren't connected the way I thought they were. Being kind didn't mean letting people hurt me. Being responsible didn't mean staying in a broken relationship. We spent the rest of the session talking about guilt and how I'd been taught that good people sacrifice their happiness for others. She gave me homework to write down every time I felt guilty and examine whether I actually did something wrong or just failed to meet someone else's unfair expectations. I left feeling lighter than I had in weeks. The next morning I went to a different bank across town and opened a new checking account. I transferred half our shared savings into it and started a spreadsheet tracking my expenses separately from Laura's. Rent, utilities, groceries, everything got split down the middle on paper. Laura noticed within 2 days when she checked our joint account balance. She came home from work looking upset and asked why I was moving money around. I explained that I needed clear financial boundaries regardless of what happened with the baby. She said it felt like I was preparing to abandon her. I reminded her that she'd been the one planning an exit strategy with James for months while I paid our bills. She went quiet and walked away. I kept updating the spreadsheet every day. My landlord lived in the building, so I knocked on his door that weekend to talk about our lease. He was an older guy who'd always been decent about maintenance requests. I explained that my girlfriend and I were splitting up and asked about options when our lease ended in 4 months. He nodded like he'd seen this before and said we could either find someone to take over my half or he'd work with us on breaking the lease early if needed. He mentioned that spring was good for finding subtenants because of people moving for new jobs. I thanked him and felt relieved to have a practical exit plan forming. Having concrete steps made everything feel less overwhelming. My phone buzzed that afternoon with a text from Katie. She sent a picture of her dog wearing a bright green sweater with reindeer on it. The message said she hoped I was doing okay. I smiled at the photo and texted back that the sweater was ridiculous and I was glad she adopted him. I kept it light and didn't dump my problems on her. She sent back a thumbs up and a dog emoji. It felt good knowing she still cared enough to check in, even though she'd set boundaries. I didn't push for more.